The Silent Guest. Rachel and Tom had always dreamed of owning a big house. When they found the Victorian mansion at a price too good to be true, they couldn't resist. The house was grand but worn, its walls heavy with history. To celebrate their move, they decided to host a dinner party for their new neighbors. It was a warm evening filled with laughter and conversation, but as the last guest left, something strange happened. An antique mirror stood by the front door, ornate and aged, though neither Rachel nor Tom had noticed it before. Did someone leave this behind? Rachel asked, eyeing the intricate gold frame that swirled with strange patterns. It felt ancient, almost alive under her touch. "No one brought a mirror in," Tom replied, frowning. "But it's kind of cool. Let's keep it for now." They hung the mirror in their bedroom, thinking nothing more of it. But that night, Rachel woke to a strange sensation, like icy fingers brushing the back of her neck. Her eyes darted toward the mirror, now glowing faintly in the moonlight. She swore she saw something moving within the fogged glass. Her heart pounded as a whisper broke the silence. "Rachel." She sat up, scanning the room for the source of the sound, but there was nothing. Only the mirror seemed alive with the reflection of shadows that didn't belong. She woke Tom, but the moment the lights flicked on, the room was normal again, leaving her to wonder if it had all been a bad dream. Over the next few nights, the whispers grew louder, and the mirror became clearer. The fog that once covered the glass lifted, revealing her reflection in stark clarity. But she wasn't alone. A shadowy figure lingered in the corners of the reflection, watching her. Rachel's nights were filled with dread. Each time she looked into the mirror, the figure grew bolder, standing closer to her reflection, its features still too vague to make out. The room felt colder, darker, and her once comfortable home began to feel like a trap. One night, she awoke to a freezing chill. Her breath came out in visible puffs, and the air felt dense with something wrong. The figure was there again, but this time it wasn't just in the reflection. She could feel it behind her. Trembling, Rachel turned to see the man, tall and gaunt, standing at the foot of the bed. His face was pale, almost featureless except for dark, hollow eyes. His hands were long and skeletal, and as they reached toward her, she screamed. Tom leapt out of bed, switching on the lights, but by the time they came on, the figure was gone, leaving only an oppressive chill. Rachel researched the house's history the next day, desperate for answers. She learned that the previous owner, Edgar Blackwood, had been a reclusive collector of occult objects. His final years had been marked by madness, ranting about a silent guest who watched him from the mirror. Rachel's blood ran cold when she discovered that Edgar had disappeared one night, leaving no trace. His only possession left behind, the mirror. She knew they had to get rid of it. Tom tried to smash it with a hammer, but it wouldn't break. They threw it out, left it in the woods, even tried burying it. But every morning, the mirror returned to its place on the bedroom wall, pristine and intact, as if mocking them. Rachel's sanity began to unravel. She saw the figure everywhere now, not just in the mirror. It appeared in windows, in the reflection of puddles, in the glass of picture frames. Every time she glanced at a surface that could reflect, there it was, watching. The final night was the worst. Rachel and Tom were lying in bed when the air in the room thickened. The temperature dropped, and the house groaned as if something heavy was pressing down on it. Rachel's breath hitched as the whispers began again, low and menacing. But this time, They weren't just coming from the mirror, they were everywhere. "Come closer, we're waiting." The lights flickered, plunging the room into darkness. A cold wind swept through, though the windows were shut, and then they heard it. The unmistakable creak of footsteps, slow and deliberate, moving toward their bedroom door. Rachel gripped Tom's hand tightly, her pulse racing. The door creaked open, and standing in the hallway was the figure from the mirror. But now, it was real, no longer confined to reflections. It was there, in the flesh, its hollow eyes fixed on Rachel. "Tom," she whispered, her voice shaking. "We have to go. Now." But before they could move, the figure stepped into the room. It was even taller and more imposing in the flesh, its body long and thin, draped in a black cloak. Its face, or what remained of it, was a pale, featureless mask, with sunken eyes that seemed to draw in the darkness around them. Tom tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't move. The air was too heavy, too thick, like he was trapped in a dream. The figure raised its hand, and with a flick of its bony fingers, the bedroom door slammed shut, trapping them inside. Rachel's heart pounded in her chest as the figure moved closer. She wanted to scream, but her throat closed up, leaving her frozen in fear. It leaned over her, its cold breath brushing against her skin as it whispered in a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "You can never leave." The next morning, the house was still. When the real estate agent arrived to check on the property, she found the house empty, the bed neatly made, and the mirror hanging on the wall, reflecting the quiet, untouched room. Rachel and Tom were gone. No trace of them remained. Curious, the agent stepped closer to the mirror, admiring the intricate details of the frame. She ran her fingers along the carvings, pausing when she noticed something odd about the reflection. For just a moment, she thought she saw movement in the glass, but when she looked again, all she saw was her own reflection. Satisfied, she turned to leave, but as she walked away, the surface of the mirror shimmered, and for a brief second, the reflection of Rachel and Tom appeared, their faces pale and terrified, banging silently on the glass as if trapped inside. The mirror stood still again, waiting patiently for its next owners.